How's it going, buddy?
Doing well.
Yeah.
Doing well. It has been it's been fun since I moved back to California. I moved back to California the very end of March, and I have been enjoying being home. I moved to Florida during
Mhm.
COVID, and I love Florida, but it has been nice to be back in Southern California.
How long you been back in California for?
So end of March, beginning of April. So what's that, about 3 months now? A little over 3 months.
Oh, okay, not too long. What made you go to Florida?
So COVID basically shut down the
Yeah.
entire California, the whole country for a short period of time. I was supposed to fight March 13th, 2020, main event on the Fox Sports Network for Lights Out Extreme Fighting's heavyweight title. Woke up March 12th to find out the biggest fight of my career had been canceled due to COVID. 3 weeks to flatten the curve turned into months and months and months. And so by the time it was like midsummer, I was like, man, I need to get out of this state. Because I can't just sit here and wait with an unknown amount of time until things might open back up.
Yeah.
And so by the end of the year, I had moved to Tampa, Florida, to pursue professional wrestling training full-time, which was already the next intended chapter of the Bulletproof Troop saga. Moved there December of 2020, and that just basically became my pretty much full-time focus. And eventually came back when fighting came back to California once COVID lightened up out here, and came back as a commentator, which I still do commentating now for Lights Out Extreme Fighting.
Absolutely. It's been an honor to sit next to you. I mean, even see you at the Lights Out event, you're very fun. You're very enthusiastic. What was it like? Where did you grow up? Where were you originally from?
Born and raised here in Southern California, born at St. John's Hospital in Santa Monica. Okay. Grew up in Playa del Rey, and then moved to the South Bay, which is about 10 minutes south of LA, 15 minutes south of LAX airport in fifth grade, which was like, I don't know, 98, something like that.
Okay, so a
born
while
and
ago.
raised here in Los Angeles. One of the few, a lot of people move to Southern California or Los Angeles, but born and raised here.
Yeah, LA's sick. I've been here my whole life. I was born in Corona and kind of moved in out of the whole Inland Empire, LA, back to IE, and even Palm Springs at some point. But what was it like training out in Florida?
I did not do a ton of mixed martial arts training in Florida. Almost the entirety of my training was professional wrestling.
Yeah.
So I do train a little bit out there, but not in any competitive sense.
Okay.
But the professional wrestling training, which I really enjoy, and as much as it appears similar to mixed martial arts, it's very, very different in terms of the training and performance and so forth. But I really enjoyed professional wrestling. I still do professional wrestling. That is I'd say the main focus, or like the co-main focus of my career right now, between commentary and professional wrestling, which it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy the entertainment aspect of professional wrestling.
Yeah, me too. It looks very fun. Now, don't mind if I'm wrong, but what's the training like? I understand that you have to be an extreme athlete. I mean, it's a different type of training because obviously mixed martial arts is completely different from even the looks of it. But give me a rundown on what it's like to actually do a week-long training.
So I would say the biggest differences with training for professional wrestling compared to like mixed martial arts is you take mileage slightly differently. And by mileage, I mean like you're not getting kicked in the leg or punched in the head and so forth. What you're doing is you're slamming your body into the mat repeatedly.
Yeah.
And it's not something you can really get around because you have to learn this fluidity of training with a partner and making things moving together, and whether you're the person doing the move or you're having the move done to you. And we're not big fans of the F word, fake, but it's cooperative. And so as a result, you have to get the mat time in to be able to fluidly cooperate with an opponent, because a big difference with mixed martial arts and professional wrestling is mixed martial arts, we're there to compete against each other.
Yeah.
In professional wrestling, we're there to work together to get the crowd to enjoy the show. And so it's a much different level of cooperation, but the mileage being slamming your body into the mat repeatedly. And they say it's like getting in a car crash at X amount of miles per hour, whatever. It's
Really?
where it's a lot on the body, and it's a much different type of mileage than getting kicked in the leg or punched in the head, But you'll typically go in, you'll do a handful of warm-ups. Rolling is really important in professional wrestling. You'll do like rolls and stuff. Typically run the ropes and things of that nature because there's a lot of footwork involved in professional wrestling, in like everything that you do. And so a lot of like footwork drills and getting in, and we call it chain wrestling, which will be like grappling with each other. But the thing is, it's not competitive where you're like struggling. It's like, how do we work together? Boom, boom, they get this, bam, 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 switch into this, and making it look fluid and but still to some extent competitive. But we call them bumps when you slam into the mat or wherever it is, taking bumps. That's the part that is the mileage in professional wrestling.
Yeah, it seems very difficult. I mean, one immense athlete that I really admire is Logan Paul, not just for his characteristics outside the cage, but dude, the kid's a stud. He's phenomenal. He looks good. I mean, that kid's in tip-top shape. We're also talking about a guy who's 6'4", roughly like yourself. You're a pretty big guy. I mean, I'm relatively small. I'm 5'8", probably 170 pounds. But man, you guys are almost super athletes just due to the mileage, like you were saying. And so I understand that chemistry is a big thing.
Absolutely. So and that's why you'll see a lot of guys will work together. And believe it or not, like some of the guys who have like these extensive rivalries, a lot of times they're really good friends. They've worked together a ton already. And so like, and you'll see guys that'll be like a team together and then they'll split for like a storyline. Then they go against each other. And it's guys that know each other's games inside and out. And kind of like another big thing is timing, where they're going to be at certain points in time and, or when they're doing certain moves, they practice so much on each other.
Yeah, I could see that for sure.
But you mentioned Logan Paul. I'm really impressed with the guy. He has gotten a lot of, I want to say, I don't know if hate's the right word, but people that have been doing professional wrestling for a very long time. And he has, I mean, the guy's already been on a WrestleMania. The dude, like, how many matches has he had? And like, as somebody who's cut the line to an extent in professional wrestling, I can appreciate what some people are frustrated about by you're taking a guy who has, and I don't want to say minimal training or experience because the dude came in very prepared and has knocked it out of the park. I've been extremely impressed by his work. But guys that have been doing this for 10 years are like, how's this no-namer in wrestling coming through? But a big thing people don't realize is professional wrestling is the entertainment industry. And the guy's a fantastic entertainer.
Yeah, for sure.
Who's come in and learned how to perform in a professional wrestling ring and put on a banger event. Just like his brother Jake Paul wants to hate on the guy, it's the entertainment industry. And these dudes are entertainers who have come in and taken this, whatever they're doing, seriously enough to do well. Like, I was not a believer in Jake Paul at first. I am now.
Yeah, I am now.
And I'm a fan of the guy, especially what he's doing outside of the ring to help fighters in terms of contracts and so forth. We're like, dude, people are getting paid at his shows, And like, and for people that can get past him getting this, past, like I'm training for decades, I'm fighting pro for almost a decade. And if you can get past it, man, how's this guy way past me with doing way less? Like I dedicated my life, then you can start taking notes. And if you look at a lot of the things that Jake Paul has been doing, like the dude is making a blueprint on how to be an entertainer and come out and get fans interested in what they're doing. And so that was a big thing that I did early on when I watched Conor McGregor come out, and like a guy who's, and Conor can Conor fight? Yes. But Conor McGregor's Conor McGregor because that dude can talk and he can entertain people. And so at first people want to hate on the guy. He's getting favorable matchups and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay, maybe he is, but that's because UFC wants to put a microphone in his hand.
Yeah.
And people want to sit there and hate, or like a guy that I don't want to say hated on, but was a little jealous of was CM Punk. CM Punk, skill-wise, his accolades didn't justify him fighting in the UFC, which I'm not mad at.
Yeah.
But the reason the UFC is a for-profit business.
Yeah.
He put asses in seats and sold pay-per-views. And so instead of sitting back and hating on the guy, because at first I'm like, man, I've been doing this for so long, blah, 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 blah. And like, fuck, well, Conor's getting special treatment, CM Punk. What do I got to do to get special treatment? I need to figure out how to be a little bit more entertaining. And that's exactly why I created my brand of Bulletproof Troop. All my little catchphrases started coming out with the big grenade chain. Was looking at guys like this, and instead of sitting back and hating, like, how do I get there? How do I get that? And I grew up a huge professional wrestling fan. So Bulletproof Troop was just essentially a professional wrestling personality in combat sports. And I started that in 2016. So, like,
Oh,
you know, people are always like, wow, man, your brand's so developed. You're less than 3 years into pro wrestling. Like, yeah, but I'm like 8 or 9 into Bulletproof Troop, you know? But so look at the guys like, and bringing it back to what I was saying with like Logan Paul or Jake Paul, or guys that have come in and taken it seriously and been entertainers within the industry to get people interested in what they're doing. Like, when guys come in and take it seriously, like those two have in their respective fields, like I have a ton of respect for it, you know, like, and anybody who wants to hate on it, I just think's a hater, kind of.
yeah, there's no denying that these guys are just brilliant. I mean, Jake, from what he's able to do with boxing, and the Mike Tyson to the Ben Askren, Anderson Silva, just everything, he's really capitalized on his position. Whether you want to hate on him or not, the thing that amazes me is people say he's not a good boxer. The kid's a legit boxer. If you know combat sports, you would understand this kid is the real deal. Now, let's say he never did his YouTube stuff or never was an influencer, and this kid was just knocking out professional athletes like this, you would say that kid's a motherfucker. And he's a badass. Same with his brother. His brother's a tremendous athlete. I mean, a wrestler. Have you seen him rolling with Paulo Costa? That video, it's probably a couple years old.
With his wrestling scrambling.
Yeah. No, he's really has a good flow and a good sense of wrestling, and obviously translates very well to his athleticism in the cage. But now I wanted to ask you, what got you started in MMA? Were you always in it as a kid, or was there a reason why you got into it? Or give me the rundown.
So yeah, there's a story about how my mixed martial arts career began. So I want to say I was a freshman in high school, and I had a friend who was overweight. Shout out to Alex Serrano, by the way. And he's like, hey, I want to do kickboxing and try and lose weight. Would you be down to do kickboxing with me? I was like, yeah, fuck it, let's do kickboxing. You know, like, I had an older brother and I was an older brother, so like I like to play rough. So I was like, yeah, fuck it, let's do kickboxing. So we started training a few times a week at a place, and this is back in like 2000, 2001, when like UFC was nowhere near what it is today.
Yeah.
I think Zuva probably owned it, but it was very, very early stages of the UFC. And so we went to a gym called South Bay JKD, which is not around anymore, but it just happened to be full of legitimate black belts. And this is like way back before that was
even popular.
Yeah. You know, and so we did kickboxing. Like, it was like legit kickboxing. And then I stuck around one day for a no-gi grappling class, and I just fell in love with it. And so I just happened to start training at a super legit gym way back when, because I had a friend who was overweight and wanted to do kickboxing.
Wow.
And then I went and I fell in love with it and enjoyed martial arts, and then continued to train under a variety of different people. Happened to stumble across it. There was no
there's no turning point for you where you were just like loving watching it and then wanting to get into it?
So, well, yes, there was a yeah, kind of. So I grew up a huge professional wrestling fan, like ever since I was a little kid. And then in like the late 90s or so, I found out professional wrestling wasn't real. And like it broke a young Blake's heart, bro.
Yeah.
You know, I'm 36. So I was like, 10, 11 or something. And I grew up believing, like, and I loved professional wrestling. And so it broke my heart, and a few years went by, and this is when UFC kind of started up early. UFC was in like, mid-90s. I didn't find out about it until like, later in the 90s, and started watching it, and I absolutely loved it. And so like my original dream was to grow up to be WWF or WCW world champion.
Yeah.
And then that broke my heart. And then I started watching UFC, and I wanted to be UFC champion. Like as a little kid, like, wow, I'd be so. And then I started training kickboxing. I was like, dude, this shit's dope.
Yeah.
I think I'm really going to do this. And so those were like my first two dreams. And I'm on the road down both of those. Like I said, I wanted to be UFC champion. Feel like I have stepped away from the competitive part of my fight career before getting there, which I didn't think I'd be UFC champion when I left, but I would have liked to. My last fight was supposed to be the lights out of street fighting heavyweight title.
I think you would have got it done.
I think I would have too, but I will say that there's a little longing for it. I've had some offers, and coming back for a potential retirement fight is something I would consider if all things lined up properly and it made sense for me, my brand, and my career.
Yeah.
But I definitely kind of want to get that belt, because I wanted to be UFC champion, but if not, get there like lights out of street fighting champion would do. But at the same time, the amount of investment and like mileage and so forth that I got to put into being able to compete at that level, we'll see.
Yeah, it's very difficult, especially in combat sports. I mean, I deal with injuries all the time, especially in jiu-jitsu, but I wanted to bring this up to you. You've trained at a ton of gyms. I've trained at a decent amount of gyms, not a ton just like you, but I wanted to ask you about the new phase and era of black belts. Now, there's been a big argument with black belts now where some people are maybe undeserving of a black belt. I don't want to say what gyms, but some gyms are handing out black belts maybe on membership and attendance, not on actual skill. Because I know yourself, you're a brown belt, and I mean, you're a stud at jiu-jitsu. I saw you at the World Leagues. You're phenomenal, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So I'm a brown belt because I'm all no-gi, and I never give a fuck what color my belt was.
Yeah, me too.
You know, I think the only colored belts that matter in combat sports are gold or silver, depending on who you fight for. All belt does is hold your pants up or hold your gi closed. Like, the man makes the belt, not the other way around, or woman, or whoever is wearing the belt makes the belt. So I was a white belt from like 2001 until like 2007. Then I was a blue belt from 2007 to like 2014, and then I was a purple belt from like 2014 to 2021 or something. Wow. 2021. I got my brown in like 2021. But so, I mean, I've been I'm like a 23-year brown belt.
Yeah,
Shit, all belt is like, a belt is overrated. However, I will say that I am at the point in my career where I want to get a black belt. But not so much, I mean, the accolade for myself, cool.
Yeah.
But the thing is, being a commentator or even speaking to people, what's a brown belt to an average show?
Yeah.
But you say black belt, and even if they don't know jiu-jitsu or anything, that just means you have the highest level of understanding and blah, 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 blah. Even though belt, in my opinion, doesn't really mean shit other than a socially understood level of competence.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, as a purple belt, I beat black belt in super fight, you know, like, but okay, you know, all belt does hold your pants up, hold your gi closed. So I can't like be mad at people getting black belts. I think it's all just based on curriculum and so forth. You know, like another thing, I think if people don't compete, like, and I'm not mad at a hobbyist being a black belt, but how good can you really say you are if you've never done it against a fully resisting opponent outside of a gym of people you regularly train with? And I'm not like criticizing anybody or saying what it should or shouldn't be. I just, in my opinion, if you want to classify somebody as having the highest level of understanding of an art, have you not gone against somebody who's in a competitive sense as a black belt or that level, you know, like, because in my opinion, if you can't apply it, then like, what does it really mean?
Yeah, it's very different. I mean, even in the competing aspect, I mean, training from a normal gym and competing are two separate worlds. You're going against people who either want to do this for a living or want to do this for themselves. And that's a very, very big trial that you're going against. You're climbing a mountain, essentially. But
there's also a lot of more pressure, in my opinion. We're not just, hey, you want to roll real quick?
Dab up. No, there's the killer instinct.
But like now, people are watching. Pressure's on. And the thing is, I think that's more mimicking of if you ever need to use this in a real life situation where like, oh shit, pressure's on, you know, like, and being able to perform under the spotlight, or even if maybe it's not a spotlight, maybe it's a dark alley, or like, can you perform under that type of pressure? Because if you can't do that, then can you really call yourself a master?
Yeah.
Or you know, like, and I'm not mad at places giving out black belts or whatever, because like I said, all belts hold your pants up. But like, if you ask me about like how I feel about a black belt, and you want to, if somebody wants to be considered a master of something, I think you have to have competed in it, you know, have real life application of it in some type of sense. What that is, I don't know. I mean, you know, I don't make curriculums. I'm just saying what I think it takes to be a master of
a sport. Yeah.
Yeah. I think competing should be on that list. But then again, I'm also not mad at the guy who's the 50-year-old dad who's the hobbyist who is a good technical guy, you know, like I'm not bashing anybody who has a black belt or anything. I think being able to perform under pressure.
It's a big one for sure. I mean, you have to know when to put yourself out there and when not to. And you just got to be ready for it mentally, physically. But now with the jiu-jitsu talk, you say the belt holds your gi up. I hate the gi. I can't do it. I'm a full no gi guy. I've done the gi for judo purposes, but nothing more because I wrestled, then judo, and now jiu-jitsu, but no gi jiu-jitsu. Now, with the rise in Nogi, with the CJI Craig Jones Invitational. What do you think about that going against ADCC?
Well, first I'm going to start with fuck the gi.
Yeah.
The reason I'm like a 20-something year brown belt, put that fucking gi on. I remember so real quick before I get into that, I remember I called Kenny Johnson, who's the head coach at Black House. I was like, Kenny, like now I'm doing a bunch of commentator and stuff. Like I'm ready to try and get my black belt. He's like, cool, next time I see you, I'll give it to you. I was like, whoa, I got to get my brown belt first. He's like, you're still a purple belt?
Yeah,
I'm never really worried about it. He's like, all right, I'll give this to you in a year from tomorrow, or a year from the day I give it to you, I'll give you your black belt. And that was like 2 years ago. I've been holding off getting my black belt because I'm trying to politic my way into getting one from Higan Machado.
Ooh.
Who I got my purple belt from Higan and Bob Bass together, and pretty much all of my, I got my blue belt from Nick Kirsten, who's a Higan Machado black belt.
Yeah.
I got my white belt from, Marcelo Cavalcanti, who's also a Higan Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I did a majority of my training under Bob Bass for a very long time. Got my brown belt from Kenny Johnson, who's business partners with Higan Machado. And like, because the next chapter of my career is like film work and stuff, I'm trying to politic my way in. And I really feel like Higan Machado's style of jiu-jitsu is what I represent the most. Top game, take guys down, get on top, smash and pass. But so anyway, fuck the gi.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of no-gi. I think it is far more realistic. And
100%.
I'm a fan of, I think it's faster paced. One thing I don't like is the amount of acceptable butt scooting in a lot of no-gi grappling today. But the leg lock game has changed no-gi competition. But then back to your question, things like CJI, I'm a fan. I think the sport needs more money in it. I think too many of these guys compete
for nothing almost.
For nothing, like the thing is where people are like, oh, he's going toe-to-toe with ADCC. I think winning ADCC, that's like winning the biggest thing you can win for no-gi grappling. That's the biggest of the biggest. But the thing is, that ain't going to pay your bills.
It's only $10,000 if you win it. I mean, you climb the mountain, you go about maybe 10 to 15 matches for a 2-day period against absolute killers from all around the world, 100%. And you get $10,000.
And Craig Jones winning it's $1 million.
Yeah, I love it. I really love Craig. He's hilarious. I don't know if you listen to him on Joe, but he is so funny. I love watching his clips on Instagram. He's a bright guy. He gets it. He understands it. And not only that, he's a real black belt. He's insane. He taught me the buggy choke.
Very innovative guy where he has a lot of innovative approaches and so forth. And he's another guy who has a ton of personality, which he's like an entertainer, which I can't wait to watch him and Gabby Garcia.
Yeah. Oh, that's going to be great. I know. I mean, I don't know if you saw the press conference between them, but man, he's just bullying her the whole time. This is going to be great. I'm really excited to see the mountain of Gabby Garcia go against Craig Jones. I think it's going to be hilarious. He said he was going to walk out with a cigarette in his mouth, put it down, and I'm pretty sure they're doing a karate combat style octagon. Or ring, however you call it.
Nice. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the pit.
Me too. I like it. I mean, it punishes you for going backwards and stalling, which I really like, but you could also use it to throw up a triangle choke like we saw Craig Jones do.
Right. Yeah, so the guy named Massimo owns Karate Combat, and I was actually at the last Karate Combat on, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago in Orlando. I love that's probably one of my favorite combat sports rule sets, Karate Combat.
Yeah, that's sick.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to Craig Jones Invitational, and like him and Gabby Garcia. This is the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
Like how many people, if you're just looking on paper, like how many people are interested in seeing Gabby Garcia versus Craig, but the build-up, the press conference,
everything. It really puts a big name around it. I mean, even the jiu-jitsu world has grown so much. There's gyms probably 2 or 3 in every city now. It has widespread. But a big thing I wanted to ask you, I know later today you're going to be at the BKFC event. Let's talk about that. That has grown onto me so much. But I want to know this. I don't know if you've ever tried bare knuckle, but that shit hurts. Not only to your face, but to your wrist, to the damages. Because with the UFC, they give you the gloves not to protect the other person, but protect your hands, dude. It's so easy to break a knuckle or fracture your wrists, especially when you're throwing punches like that. Give me your thoughts on that.
So, like I said, karate combat's one of my favorite forms of combat sports. BKFC might be my favorite single style of combat sports at the moment. 5 2-minute rounds. So it's a drag race. You guys are over 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So there's no time to really feel each other out. And a lot of guys get put away. And like you're saying, being hit without gloves on, significantly different. And some like the science behind it is impact is measured by pounds per square inch, PSI. And so the thing is, if you're landing here, as opposed to having a glove on, that's double or triple, quadruple the surface area. So when you're landing with a knuckle, you have significantly higher pounds per square inch landing.
It's almost like a bullet.
Yeah, so it's much smaller surface, so the impact is significantly higher on a smaller surface. Like Luke Rockhold fought against Mike Perry and basically quit in the middle of the fight. And he's like, man, this shit's different. You're talking about a former UFC champion who was a badass motherfucker, like Luke Rockhold. And Mike Perry, and I'm not bashing Mike, but Mike did not do fantastic in the UFC.
No.
But Mike Perry has gone to bare knuckle boxing and does phenomenally well.
He's really excelled the sport, in my opinion. I mean, I kind of found out about it through his clips. I mean, he, in the UFC, I'm pretty sure he was a 7th or 8th ranked guy for quite a bit of time. Never really got the best chances in the world. But in BKFC, man, this guy has carried the sport. He's so entertaining to watch, especially that fight against Eddie Alvarez. I got to be honest, I thought Eddie had it in the bag. Eddie's a phenomenal guy. I mean, he fought in Bellator to the UFC, to UFC champion. I mean, a real high-level striker. And, I mean, he made him quit.
I was really impressed by that. And BKFC was recently here in Los Angeles for Knucklemania 4, I want to say, which is like their big annual event. And he beat Thiago Alves pretty badly, very quickly. Mike Perry's another guy who's an entertainer. Mike Perry's not just a guy who gets in the ring and fights. Mike Perry is an entertainment personality outside of the ring as well. So BKFC, back to some of the things like with damaging. So not having gloves on, now guys have to be much more strategic. You throw a big overhand and you catch somebody on top of the head, you might break in your hand, which you can get away with an MMA glove on.
For sure.
Now your accuracy has to be much more in here where you're getting inside of this circle somewhere, because you start hitting out here, hands break fairly easily. So I think accuracy is far more important. And it's also much harder to block. If you've got boxing gloves on, you put your hands up, that can, your boxing gloves add some defensive-ness around your face. Ain't really a whole lot of blocking with these little bad boys.
Punches will slip through,
the windows are much bigger, so it's much easier to slip things in. And not just that, but damage adds up much, much faster, in my opinion, or mileage on a face where, it doesn't take a whole lot. A guy gets touched here, dude, there's almost blood in virtually every fight, because as soon as dudes start getting touched in the face, it just chews people's face up.
Even with the hematoma, I mean, that's in BKFC, man, on the face, a swelling to the top. I mean, one thing that really amazed me is that Joanna Jędrzejczyk, when she very first had that hematoma on her head and it was swollen, that's with a glove. Imagine if it was bare knuckle. I mean,
I think you'd get the cuts. I think it'd cut open before you'd end up having that big of hematomas typically, but yeah, she had a gnarly big old.
Yeah, I mean, I luckily had the privilege of meeting her outside of T-Mobile Arena. I was at International Fight Week 2 years ago, and I was there and I was walking, and nobody recognized her. She was just wearing her sunglasses, just casually walking out after the press conference, and I was like, "This is Joanna." So I met her. She's awesome, phenomenal, just as cool as you see her online. It's the same person. She's a sweetheart. She's humble. But how do you stay fit? Because you're in immense shape. You're obviously an athlete that's consistently competing. What is the dietary like for you?
So I'm on something right now called the C diet. Have you heard of that?
No.
So if I see it, I eat it.
Oh, okay.
To be honest, I just eat a ton of calories, and between lifting, I like to swim a good amount, lifting, pro wrestling training, not back in California, mixed martial arts and jiu-jitsu training, but a variety of different things. But I stay very active. I train 2 to 3 times a day, like 4 to 5 days a week. But I also include recovery stuff in that training session.
Yeah.
But a variety of different things, but very active all the time. I got to get my heart rate up once or twice every day. And I don't know if sex counts as cardio, but get a little bit of that in.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. I know you got some rough rounds going. You got some mileage on that or what?
Yeah.
Woke up on the wrong side of the bed sometimes?
Rough rounds, you could call them that. I call them gorilla fucks, but yeah.
Well, that's amazing. But now back to the UFC with Conor, we were talking about earlier. His comeback. Now, he was supposed to fight at International Fight Week at UFC 303. I mean, he was headlining Richard Chandler, got out to a broken toe. Alex Pereira stepped in with 2 broken toes while he was out in Australia doing a fan tour. He was just traveling, wasn't really training much. I saw a clip of him eating pizza, steps in, kills Yuri. That fight was so impressive. Alex Pereira is the motherfucker. He is so good, so strong, so quick. I mean, he's a long-term kickboxer with over 100 career fights, comes in the UFC, has the quickest ranking. If Israel Adesanya never says shit, do you think he would still find his way into MMA?
Yeah, more than likely, because he's managed by Ed Suarez and George Kamaris, who own Black House MMA. So I believe that would have been the route eventually anyway. But I definitely think that Adesanya enhanced the likelihood and maybe
sure.
a bit of an enzyme in terms of speeding up the process of him coming to mixed martial arts. But that dude's incredible. He's so fundamentally sound. He's so big, so long, so fast, so strategic that, like, guy's going to be really hard to beat, you know? I think if anybody can beat him, John Jones is up there.
Yeah, I hate this argument. I love Jones and I love Pereira. I think it makes a great matchup, but you can't forget Jones came out of 2 years of not fighting, or 3 maybe. Went in, walked down Cyril Gane, who gave Ngannou the hardest fight of his career. And it's like, this guy just walks in there and kills him. Now, I can't say that about Pereira because Pereira is so dangerous on the feet, but if he shoots and he submits him, Jones is a high-level grappler. I mean, a lot of people would argue Pereira's grappling's not there, but we've seen him against Jan Blachowicz, who's a real grappler, very high-level wrestler, kind of held him down but got his way back up. So it's very interesting to see his growth. Now, Daniel Cormier made this quote, I don't know how accurate it could be, but he said if Alex Pereira dedicated 2 years of his life to just wrestling, he would be one of the best in the world because he's so dense, so strong, and just has a natural instinct for it.
So I've never actually grappled or trained with Alex, so I can't speak on it, but black belt under Glover Teixeira now in Jiu-Jitsu. Trains a decent amount of judo as well, is what I'm seeing.
With Gay Larison, that was funny.
Yeah, right. But I think I think a guy who's gotten to that level in anything, like I tell people, you can be an Olympic fucking ping pong player. If you're that level of competitor, I think you can compete in just about anything and be really fucking good at it in a short period of time because you understand, like, building skill sets and strategies and how to win, or it's not just playing a game. So I think if you take a high-level competitor in anything and take them to something else, they can become a high-level competitor in that in a relatively short amount of time. I think it's no different for Alex Pereira if he were to go in and focus mainly on wrestling. But I think he's going to need a lot of wrestling to be able to prevent John Jones from taking him down. Like, I don't think it's if he can take him down. It's how long is he going to be able to survive if he does get taken down. Because John Jones, collegiate wrestler, wrestled in college, like, good wrestler, vicious ground and pound too. Like, his elbows on the ground. You know, and like, I think one of the closest body types and styles to Alex Pereira is Cyril Gane.
Yeah,
I think Cyril Gane, and I'm not shitting on the guy, but I think he kind of shit the bed that fight. I almost thought it almost to me looked like he threw the fight, or like there was some like discussion where he goes in with the guillotine and then like talking and he goes back to it, got the tap, and I was like, and I'm sitting there with one of my a guy working pro wrestling. He's like, he just fucking threw the fight. And I was like, oh my God. And like showing it, like we're like kind of adjusting, almost like talking, and goes for it again. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You might be right.
It looked a little premature. Even out in the walkout of him, he looked a little nervous. It looked like the moment was maybe hitting him. Now, it's not to say that he's not one of the best heavyweights of not all time, but up there. He's been in the number 1 and 2 top 5 spot for quite a while. So he's legit. Yeah, Cyril Gane. He's amazing. But Jones just really like showed the level that he's at, which is terrifying, but he's just so
with the time off, which is almost the most impressive facet to John Jones beating Cyril Gane. And like, do I think Cyril threw the fight? Not really, but watching, you're almost like, oh man.
You're interested in the conspiracy.
Interested in the conspiracy. There we go. But it really impressed me to have a guy come off the couch and be able to continue to compete at the highest level with guys that have been consistently competing. Because Cyril Gane probably had, in the last 2 years leading up 5-6 fights, you know, which he probably won all of except for Ngannou. Like, Pereira's a dangerous motherfucker, though. Yeah, you know, and I guess
scary.
I think Cyril Gane is more similar kickbox style, but Cyril Gane being more the technical guy.
Yeah.
When now Alex Pereira, who I think is fantastic, very fundamentally sound and technical, but fucking killer power. Like,
It's
if
scary.
you watch his highlight reel, him just touching people and starching people, especially with that left hook. I think the only way that he can really fight John Jones is to stay long range, but John is so long with his limbs,
he's
especially
so
like the
good.
lead knee stomps and stuff where like,
or even those teeps, man. He's so good at attacking the body and keeping you at a distance. Like Daniel Cormier in that fight, Jones had a great idea of knowing this guy's going to want to come in and wrestle. So he kept fighting that distance and he kept throwing those teeps, keeping those leg kicks. But then when Cormier would come in, he would throw a knee up the middle, right to the body. You can't take many of those, especially from a guy like John Jones. You really can't. So it forced DC to have one of two options: stick to holding this guy and maybe hoping he doesn't knee you in the clinch, or fighting from a distance, which didn't work out that well. But
right. I'm actually really interested to see the dynamic of it because I feel like John's going to have to be the guy who closes the distance on Pereira if they end up fighting. I'd love to watch that fight. And I was so impressed with him against Jiri. And I'm not bashing Jiri by any sense, but Jiri seemed to get very, very gun shy, especially after he took that first left hook. And I think one of Jiri's biggest strengths or like advantages, he's very unpredictable, does a lot of weird, wild shit.
Unorthodox for sure.
And after getting tagged a few times by Pereira, he's really tried to play like this technical game. And I'm like, bro, this is the wrong guy to be playing this game with. Like, get a little crazy, get a little wild. And I believe that him being gun shy is why he didn't really ever get his offense going. And even then, why he got knocked out at the very beginning of round 2, like, because he's got his hands down. But he's not doing his weird movement and spin and boom.
He's not being unpredictable. He's very, very straightforward, just up the middle. I mean, Pereira, his power is so scary that you see him in kickboxing. They're wearing those big boxing gloves. This guy's still starching people the same way, flatlining. Yeah, that you put him in 4 to 6 ounce gloves, he's a whole nother different level. I mean, even that Jamal Hill fight. Now, it's argued that the stoppage led to him closing the distance and whatnot. Either way, that doesn't deny his power of a one-shot kill. I mean, it really, really is astonishing the way he's been able to climb the ranks in the sport through that just left hook. I mean, even when you see him walk out and he's, hey, and he's doing that unorthodox just throw, but it's like, if he hits you with that, you're gone. That's it.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's not even like, especially if you've done like real technical, like, turn it, where he just like almost throws it.
Yeah, it whips it. Even the way he checks kicks, it's different. He's just so advanced that I think he's starting a new era of MMA. If there's one thing we've seen in combat sports, it started off with wrestling, then kickboxers, and then jiu-jitsu guys, and then back forth, and history just keeps repeating itself with these different variations of martial arts. I think we might be in the kickboxing era where these grapplers just can't get in. But obviously, grappling is one of the most dominant parts in the sport, especially from even back in the OG days. I mean, we could talk about UFC 12, UFC 14, where these guys are just phenomenal collegiate wrestlers. I mean, wrestling's always been the game in jiu-jitsu. Now, I wanted to move to Lights Out. I've had the opportunity to work an event as a post-fight interviewer in the back. My goal is to eventually build a commentary spot just like you. So I want to get a little bit of insight and information on how you started with Lights Out, whether you met Sean, Antonio, how that opportunity came about.
So I've actually been with Lights Out much longer than Antonio. Antonio's only been with us for about 5 events. So we are going on Lights Out Extreme Fighting 18 is coming up July 27th. I've been at every single Lights Out starting from number 1. I haven't missed an event. I fought co-main event on Lights Out Extreme Fighting 3. I was featured a bunch in the crowd on 4 because I was supposed to be the main event of 5. COVID canceled that, so I ended up doing commentary 5 up till 17. So only 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I've done 13 events as an analyst for Lights Out Extreme Fighting.
Wow.
Been featured on film for 2 of them. So what's that? 15 out of 17 I've been on screen for Lights Out Extreme Fighting. And the way I came to Lights Out was before Lights Out Extreme Fighting, there was a promotion here in Southern California called California Extreme Fighting, CXF, before LXF. And that was ran by a guy named George Basmajian, Steve Bash, and David Marquez. David Marquez also does production for a variety of other things, including professional wrestling. And so they scouted me kind of like, man, this could be the perfect guy for us to have on the fight side and the pro wrestling side, where he could bring, and I was a big draw. I was already kind of doing the whole bulletproof troop thing, where this guy could really help us bridge our fans kind of over the two. And so they brought me in to help me start into my professional wrestling career, get me trained, and bring me into the professional wrestling environment, and then also fight for them. So that's when Lights Out. Then this is towards the end of CXF. They start Lights Out Extreme Fighting with Sean Merriman. And so now it's the 4 of them. And so I came in and fought co-main event on Lights Out Extreme Fighting 3 for the 205-pound belt.
Oh, man, making me yawn, man.
Sorry.
I know, it's early morning.
But so they brought me in to fight for 205-pound belt. Lost a decision for that. And then had been with Lights Out since I was supposed, like I said, I was supposed to be the main event for Lights Out Extreme Fighting 5 for the heavyweight belt. Some things happened where there was I don't know the exact details behind it, but a split between Sean Merriman and Steve Bass, George Basmajian, and Dave Marquez. So they split. I know they had to figure some things out and so forth in litigation. And eventually Sean brought back Lights Out Extreme Fighting. And when he did, I came back as an analyst for them. Or so, excuse me, COVID happened, came back, worked a few events, maybe like 3 or 4, and then they had to split. And then so went from, I want to say, after 8 maybe, there's probably about a year or so off where they didn't do any Lights Out, maybe even longer than that.
Oh, wow.
And when they came back, and Sean brought me back as an analyst again with them. So I got brought in by originally George Basmajian, who saw me as a potential asset to the professional wrestling side and the fight side, where you have an asset that you can push on both ends, who is a marketable person.
Yeah, for sure. You're very marketable. You're very
has a
entertaining.
brand, has a big following. And so that's also so my introduction to pro wrestling was also through them. And I've started as a commentator for Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, Dave Marquez, which is now Championship Wrestling. And he gave me some great opportunities there. I did commentary for professional wrestling for about a year and a half, maybe almost 2 years. And then eventually made my debut for Championship Wrestling from Hollywood on October 2nd, 2021. Yeah, 2021. And so I got brought into kind of both sides of combat sports and professional wrestling through this little deal with Lights Out. And so, like I said, I've been to every single Lights Out. There's all besides Sean, Mr. Lights Out Merriman himself. You know, like I'm the person who's been with the show for the longest by far.
Okay, so you've been there since the start. You've been the original.
I've been to every single event. I went and watched it in the crowd 1 and 2, but like co-main event to 3.
And
I'm in the crowd for 4 because 4 was the 2 heavyweights fighting for the belt, and so they kept coming to me in the crowd because I'm like fucking sitting because I'm supposed to fight the winner.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I've been with the show basically since. I mean, I guess my first time I got paid by the show is 3, but I've been to every single one. I haven't missed the Lights Out yet. Like I am as lights out as it gets. The only person more lights out than me is Sean Lights Out Merriman, and that's the man. That's Mr.
Awesome.
Lights Out.
He's awesome. I love him. And Sean or Antonio or whoever is watching this, one day you have to give me the chance at either a guest commentary spot so I could build my way up to the full-time commentary, because if there's one thing I admire, it's MMA. And if there's one person who understands MMA better than I might actually fight it, it's me. So please give me the opportunity. I hope that one day comes. But
love to have you at the table one day if they make that call.
I think it would be fun. I think we would have a great time, especially Jake Watson. I had the opportunity to talk to him at the last event. He's a stud. He's awesome. He's so fun, and he's so articulate. I mean, I thought he was going to be a lot older, in his 30s. Kid's 26.
I was surprised as well.
Yeah.
Jake was a fantastic broadcast partner. I really enjoyed working with Jake.
Yeah, he's funny too. He seems like a very chill, cool guy. Did you see the sponsorship he has with F3 Energy? Now, I don't know if it's a sponsorship or an affiliate, but I started looking into them, and man, their drink's so good. I mean, it's 0 calories, 0 sugar. They're awesome. I mean, it also has nootropics in it, which I really do like. I take Fully Alpha, which is a nootropic pouch. It's kind of like a Zim, but it's just caffeine and has nootropics in it that allow you. It's like Alpha Brain kind of.
Right. Yeah, I'm familiar. So nootropics are definitely one of the things as we are have a better understanding of just how the body works and so forth. Like I take lion's mane, which is like a type of mushroom that helps with memory. Like a bunch of these different things, like which I think falls under the nootropic category. I'm a big fan of all that stuff.
Yeah, because obviously you have to be very, very intellectual when it comes to grappling. A lot of guys, now I can't say it's not beneficial, but I see a lot of guys smoke weed before class. It's very normal. I mean, I see guys come in at high, and I always ask them, like, me personally, I don't smoke, but I ask them, what does it do for you? They're like, I just flow, I roll. And these motherfuckers will go for 30 minutes straight, 7 5-minute rounds or however many rounds, and they'll just keep going and going. They have a gas tank. And I'm like, do I need to start smoking? Like, dude, these guys are just unbelievable. But
it also helps. Train high, compete high.
Yeah.
Get your hand raised high.
Yep, exactly. That's the goal. That's the goal, is get your hand raised high. But man, it's been awesome. I mean, especially with my growth in the sport, I grew up always surrounded by it. Especially when I started wrestling, I started watching UFC. That's what really got me to love it. I mean, the sport is just so amazing. Even back then, about 10 years ago, it's nowhere near where it is now, where you could almost talk to anybody on the street and they'll know. But it all started with Connor. Connor really, really did grow the sport like no other. I mean, the guy is just phenomenal. He's a great athlete. His style has never been reciprocated. I mean, that Jose Aldo, Chad Mendez, Eddie Alvarez, those are some big, big fights where it was almost looking uncertain for him, but he was so confident from the start that it allowed other athletes like Sugar Sean O'Malley to build this entertainment side of the industry to now where it's unbelievably big. And I cannot wait to see what the sport's like in 20 years.
Yeah, so I definitely think that guys like Connor have paved the way, especially in the newest generation of personalities. But they've kind of been around a little bit. Like Tito Ortiz, in my opinion, was one of like the first real personalities in combat sports. Yeah. Bleached hair, came up with the American flag, would run up the stairs, run down the stairs, flaming shorts, do his grave dig thing. Like, in my opinion, Tito is one of the trailblazers for having a personality within combat sports. You know why do you know him and Ken Shamrock? Ken Shamrock, I'd say, more hated Tito.
Yeah.
Is because there's a guy named Guy Metzger who was out of the Lions Den who's pretty good. And after Tito beat him, he threw on a shirt that said, "Gay Metzger is my bitch."
Yeah. And it went crazy. Yeah.
But like, where he brought a lot of like entertainment value to, and I'm not homophobic. I'm not putting over a problem. I just am telling the backstory on this whole beef started, but where he kind of came out and he was like this arrogant prick personality who stood out. If you saw the guy, like, you know, flaming shorts, bleached hair, like
you would think
two flags where he really stood out. He wasn't just another guy walking to the cage, you know, did his dig, and slide the body. And when he beat guys, like, he was one of the first guys to really have a personality. It was actually a big influence on me because that's when I really started watching. I remember when him and Ken Shamrock fought in like 2003.
Yeah.
You know, or like early Ultimate Fighter, you know, like where you start seeing the personalities of guys as opposed to just watching two guys go down to fight, because now it's not just two monsters fighting, that's the end of it. Now you start to get to see these people's personality and stuff. And that was actually Dana White inducted all the guys from Ultimate Fighter Season 1 into the UFC Hall of Fame because they considered that a pivotal point in the company's trajectory where it was not doing extremely well. And that really had a big turnaround for the company. And I think as a result, we started seeing more and more personality of guys, whether it's Ultimate Fighter or guys like Connor, Sugar Sean O'Malley, coming out and just being personalities after this. And I'm a big fan of it because I think it not only is it add entertainment value, but adds, I don't want to say personality, but like it humanizes the people where like, now these like people are like almost even potentially bigger than life characters now coming out and fighting instead of just two. Fighter 1, Fighter 2, go. You know, which I'm not mad at. And I think to an extent we need that in fighting as well. I don't think every single guy on the card can be a crazy personality. But when you get the guys that are good at it.
Yeah, I mean.
And a handful of them, like.
Chael Sonnen's an awesome
another fantastic.
I love him. I met him this year at International Fight Week. He was doing the desk with Dustin Poirier, Megan O'Leary, and they were cracking me up, and I got the chance to talk to him. The guy's a sweetheart. He's completely different off camera than what he is on camera. And what I mean by that, and not in a negative sense, he is so nice, so genuine, and takes the time to just talk to people. You don't see that amongst guys who have his fame or his pedigree, who are just up there in the world. I mean, even watching Dustin Poirier try to leave that little stadium, dude, the kid was getting flooded. I mean, he had 4 security guards, and even then, people are jumping in. There's probably 50 or 60 people just climbing on this guy. This guy can't even walk out, but it's to show the characters that they play. And it's not even like Dustin Poirier's a fake. he's so authentic. I mean, a kid from Louisiana who didn't grow up the best life to fighting for literally everything he has. I mean, it's such an inspirational story. And to see him possibly go breaks my heart, but I would love to see him come back for one more fight. I think it would be awesome if we did.
I think so too. And I'm a big Dustin Poirier fan. And nothing about like Dustin Poirier. I say that there's guys who come and compete in mixed martial arts. Then there's dudes who fight each other.
Yeah.
And Dustin, it's always way more fun watching you fight another dude.
Yeah.
And Dustin Poirier, given he's got some strategy and stuff, but he's not coming out trying to point, score a decision win. He's coming out trying to put a dude away.
Yeah.
And it just makes for that much more entertaining of fights. It's a big thing I talk about in commentary. It's like, are these dudes fighting each other or are they competing against each other?
Yeah.
Because there's a different level of, I think, aggression and entertainment value to two dudes fighting each other. Given you can still be very technical.
Yes, of course.
But are these dudes trying to fuck each other up? Or are these dudes just trying to like...
Mistakes are made.
Yeah, like fighting to win or fighting not to lose are two very, very different types of approaches to a fight. Dustin Poirier for sure comes in to fight to win and like put dudes away. And I'm a big fan of Dustin Poirier.
Yeah, I've always been a lifelong fan of Dustin, but he really impressed me in that Makhachev fight. I mean, that 5-rounder, it was awesome. It's sad to see him not go to decision, get Darst in the last round. But, man, he put on a fight. He put on a war, and that's what he does. And at the end of the fight, I thought he was just going to call it quits because that is the best way to go. Going out like a dog. He showed everything he got. He didn't quit. He didn't give up, and he just kept fighting, man. It's what he loves, and it's what he does best.
So I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Who's your GOAT?
It's a hard question because Jones is up
there.
Like, I love Khabib, man. He's 29-0. Now, a lot of people argue his record on who he's fought and those guys' combined record. But you're talking about 29 wins with maybe losing one round in that Conor fight.
I was going to say.
He's so unbelievably dominant. I mean, we've never seen somebody so dominant in the sport come in, wipe it out, and unfortunately leave. And it's not like he left in a sense of he was just trying to quit. There was unfortunate circumstances that happened, but he passed it down to Islam Makhachev, who is now, you could say, the terror #1 pound-per-pound fighter in the world right now. And it's to show if that guy was in a level above him, I mean, what can you argue? And now Islam is a different fighter. He has striking. He has grappling. He has it all. Khabib was just so good at keeping you on the ground and beating the fuck out of you, dude. He would talk shit to you while he's beating you. I loved it, too.
Especially on top gunner. Like, whoa, say it now.
Let's talk now. He's scary. He's the baddest. But Islam is paving his way to show how great Khabib really was. And that's what I'm very excited to see. I mean, there's supposed to be arguments about him and Arman fighting later this year in December or October in Abu Dhabi, but Arman obviously had that conflict at 300 suspension, which if he does the anti-bullying PSA, I think it would be pretty funny to see him. He doesn't speak the best English, but yeah. I mean, I had the opportunity to meet Arman Sarukian down here in Glendale. He's an awesome guy. He's phenomenal. He's cool. He's just like how you think he would be. He's just a very humble and just natural, traditional guy.
Yeah, he's an incredible grappler, too. I've watched him train at Black House before. He's an incredible athlete. So your GOAT's Khabib?
Yeah. What about you?
So I will say Khabib, in my opinion, is probably the most dominant fighter ever. Like, arguably never lost a round. I would say that my GOAT is probably between, like, it's tough to say because I've watched so many different eras of combat sports.
That's
and, like, originally, if you asked me this 15 years ago, I said Fedor. But then you watch Fedor lose a handful of times. You're like,
I don't know.
I don't know. And then I would have said Anderson Silva. But, again, a guy who, that's a little biased because he's a Black House guy, but who, in my opinion, ended his career on, a handful of losses and not looking as good. But at the same time, like, I gotta kind of respect the guy for doing that. And then, like, you start looking a little more modern era. And
it's changed.
I can't say John Jones. I'm not a fan of some of the
things he's done, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but in terms of fighting, the guy is an incredible fighter. I want to say either GSP or Mighty Mouse are probably, in my opinion, two of the greatest fighters ever. GSP beat, I want to say, like, 7 UFC champions. Yeah. I think there's only one guy who beat more UFC champions than GSP, and I think GSP fought a lot of who's. And, like, his losses, once after, he lost to Matt Hughes, but Matt Serra, I don't believe in a lucky punch, but, like, he got caught.
Yeah, he did.
But besides that, man, dude, he dominated a lot of guys. Would out wrestle wrestlers that were, like, high-level wrestlers, and, like, one of the first extremely, extremely well-rounded guys that was super good at everything, which I think kind of changed where we watched fighting, where it's one style dominant. It was wrestler
for sure.
against jiu-jitsu or against boxer, you know, and then you see a guy like Matt Hughes come in where it's a wrestler who's got a little striking and a little submission game. And then you see a guy like GSP come in who is a well-rounded guy and just coming in and eventually changed the guard changing. Then we saw it come a little more where like guys were really good at one thing, but pretty good at everything else. Like almost specialists. And I think we're kind of, like we were saying earlier, we're like, there's like a new kickboxing where it's kind of doing this skewing and going back and forth between emphasis on like specialists, pretty good at everything, to being super well-rounded. And like some of these guys now, because mixed martial arts as a sport, because originally, like I'm 36, like early on, you did wrestling, you did jiu-jitsu, you did boxing, and then you just kind of had to combine that shit on your own.
Yeah, mesh it together, yeah.
Where now I believe that it's such a developed sport, and we have generations of guys who have been doing this now. It's striking for MMA that includes boxing and kickboxing and so forth, where the ability to blend all that together into a mixed martial arts style instead of learning it on your own and then figuring out how to apply those tools. But I'd probably say GSP is my GOAT because I also feel like he went out on top.
Yeah, he did for sure.
You know, and I think that's a big thing, like with Fedor, Anderson Silva, where you see these guys lose the tail end of their career and had they walked off maybe, and I don't want to say tarnish their legacy. I don't think it was tarnished, but I do think it impacted a negotiation for the GOAT status and how GSP leave. Vacated the belt, went up a weight class, beat the champion, and vacated the belt. Like that's pretty fucking GOAT right there, you know? It's such a well-rounded guy who did so much and like not just that, but a class act outside of the ring as well. You know, he would show up in a suit like really respectable guy, a true martial artist in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure.
And the Mighty Mouse, I think, is one of the most underrated mixed martial artists. But that dude is so good at everything. Remember when he did the
suplex to flying
the armbar? Like
it's crazy. He's so good, and I
small.
hate the trade.
They're knockouts.
Yeah.
It's the thing about these little guys.
I mean, I hate the trade of him and Ben Askren. I mean, I love Ben; he's good, but to see Mighty Mouse go like that, man. I mean, you're talking about one of the biggest names in the sports, technically. I mean, have you seen him in that jiu-jitsu tournament?
Yeah,
it was him. He's 125 pounds against a 220-pound black belt. Yeah.
Or
brown belt. Yeah, brown belt. Sorry, yeah.
But yes, I think he's one of the most technically, fundamentally sound dudes. Like, incredible. You just think about the 125 pounders, they don't draw because you don't have knockouts. You got these little guys that are just
pounding,
but kick each other in the head and keep going.
Speedsters, it's crazy.
Because like once if you're below like 155, dudes don't really get knocked out. So I think they do, but not like
up there. When you get up there, man, the power really.
I think that's also goes into my thought process behind GSP being the GOAT. Is you're in this, you can get hit once and be knocked out category. Where not that you can't lower down, but like I think the dangers of losing like that are fucking much higher in the weight classes 170, 85. You know, even Michael Bisping could have touched him, clipped him, and gone down. You know, like it happens.
Yeah.
You don't see guys getting clipped like that at 125.
130.
So I think to bring it all the way back, GSP's my GOAT.
Yeah, GSP, he's a character too. He's very funny. I've listened to a bunch of podcasts that he's on. He's a cool guy. He's very organic and just himself, which I really do appreciate and admire because there's some guys who, like Colby Covington, who put on an act. And I mean, he's a very, not controversial fighter, but an unliked, unfavorable fighter. But he's really good.
So in terms of being a fighter, I think Colby Covington is an incredible fighter. The thing is with his character, you can tell that he's trying to play something. So it kind of comes off cringy and like,
I don't know if this is it. Yeah, especially in the UFC where it's real fighting.
And he's easy. And a lot of it's like he's so in pro wrestling, we have heels and faces, good guys and bad guys. He leans into being the bad guy, but I think he does it in a way that doesn't come across genuine enough, so it doesn't get taken as such, you know? Like, well, I think John Jones leans into kind of being the bad guy too, but it comes across very like, fuck this dude. Like, which one of the things I do like about John Jones, where he leans into it, you know? Like,
he does. He does very good at that.
You know, but it seems genuine when he does it with Kobe. And again, I don't know how Kobe really feels, but it seems like he's putting on an act. And I think that's one of the things with being an entertainer. Like Sugar Sean O'Malley, I think that's really Sugar Sean.
Yeah, I think
Conor McGregor, I think that's really Conor McGregor. You know, give him probably volume turned up, but like Kobe Covington, I don't know if that's really Kobe Covington. And I'm not bashing him whatsoever. I'm a fan of him fighting, and I think that he is a top-tier competitor in the UFC, but like I think when it comes to personality, like, or putting on a character, it's gotta be some genuineness.
Yeah, you got to play the part to a point where I feel like a lot of guys start to believe they are this character. There's some people who set off an act and eventually grow into it, and that's them, and that's their life. And it's very interesting seeing some guys go through different phases. I mean, we've seen that with some martial artists where there'll be one person, next time they're other. We'll see even with Connor, super nice guy, then back to the evil villain to who he once was, especially after the movie. But we're a little bit close on the time, but I just wanted to do an appreciation. I want you to shout yourself out on all socials, man. We definitely got to run this back. I'm going to have Blake Bulletproof Troop back again soon.
We're doing it, baby. Blake Bulletproof Troop, known for dropping warheads on people's foreheads. You can find me at Bulletproof Troop on Instagram, at Big Troop 22 on X, or you can swing on over to bulletprooftroop.com. Pick yourself up some merch. You can find me commentating for Lights Out Extreme Fighting. You can download the Lights Out Sports app on whatever software system you use. Or you can also catch me doing professional wrestling on the CW app for the National Wrestling Alliance. I actually recently competed for the national title, and soon I'm coming for that 10 pounds of gold, baby. Again, Blake Bulletproof Troop. Catch me at Bulletproof Troop or bulletprooftroop.com, baby. Locked, cocked, and ready to rock. Wah! Lights out.
Well, I love it, buddy. I'll see you soon. I'll see you in about 2 weeks in Long Beach for Lights Out 18. It's going to be very exciting. It's going to be a good show, and I can't wait to be there, man. I'll see you at the weigh-ins, okay, bud?
Looking forward to it, man.
All
Thanks
right,
for having me.
Of course, brother. Always. Thank you.
Bang, bang.